Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for our third MTN Bushfire live dialogues in partnership with United Nations Eswatini. My name is Zenanile Dlamini, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon. With me here, I have lovely ladies, my panelists for this afternoon. And before we get on with the order of the day, I just want to ask them to introduce themselves briefly to tell us who they are and what they do. I'll start over with Sakhile on my right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sakhile Nsibandze, and I'm part of the UNDP think tank.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Nixon. I'm a director with Fair and Square. We do capacity building and training.
Hi, everybody. I'm Siphesihle Mkhonta. I'm with the Junior Achievement Team in Eswatini.
Hello, everyone. My name is Velemseni, and I'm an artist, and also I teach music at a local university.
Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you so much for making time to join us this afternoon. We will be talking about the right to a decent standard of living, and we're zoning in on youth employability, as well as improving the livelihoods of vulnerable populations. Now, before we get onto our chat, we just want to highlight the fact that this dialogue is in partnership with UN Eswatini, where we are celebrating 75 years of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Now, the creative economy is a major focus of the Bring Your Fire call to action for MTN Bushfire, represented in the Bring Your Fire pillars, which are Tune Your Fire and Grow Your Fire. Tune Your Fire designates MTN Bushfire's initiatives to support arts, development, and the creative economy. Now, for Grow Your Fire, this one is dedicated to helping to provide opportunities for economic development in Eswatini and encompasses supporting small businesses and traders, making space for informal vendors to market their wares to festival goers and boosting associated industry sectors such as hospitality, food, transport, with visitors to the country. In fact, an independent economy survey by the University of the Northwest in South Africa showed that MTN Bushfire generates over 45 million emalangeni for the economy in Eswatini. So we see the impact that MTN Bushfire has, not just on the entertainment space, but also in providing livelihoods for many Emaswati. So like I said before, we will be zoning into discussing about the youth employability and focusing on improving the livelihoods of vulnerable populations in the country. So globally, we know that the youth constitute about 16% of the total population, and with Africa being the youngest continent in the world, where we have over 70% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa being under the age of 30. Now in Eswatini, we have about 70% of the population being under the age of 35, which is the description of the cutoff age for young people in our country. So this means that Eswatini is a very youthful population, which places it as a great opportunity for economic growth and innovation, and as well as it puts us at a better place to harness the demographic dividend. However, it also places us at a disadvantage because it means that this group now is the one that's more susceptible to different socioeconomic issues, such as poverty and youth unemployment. Now, youth unemployment is a serious development issue, not just in Eswatini, but in many African countries. They are grappling with it. In Eswatini, we have about 52.8% of our young people who are unemployed. We have about 59% of our population that's living below the poverty line, and we have about 20% who are in extreme poverty. Now, when we look at the size of our population, these numbers are very, very concerning. And when we also look into our education sector, we have about 92%. That's the net enrollment rate. That means young Emaswati are going to school. However, when we look at the enrollment rate going up into secondary school, that's at 35%. And then when you go to upper secondary school, it goes low to 12%. So this increase, this continual decrease is also an indicator of the fact that our young people are not completing through the education system, which means that when they are at the age at which they are now supposed to be working, they're not employable because they don't have the skills. So this is the problem that we're now facing as a country. Now I'd want to just pass a question to Sakhile and Velemseni just to briefly tell us about the challenges that young Emaswati are facing from your perspective as young people, as a young artist. what would you say are the challenges that young Eswatini are facing that are inhibiting them from having a decent standard of living?
Hi again, everyone. I think the major challenge that we face in Eswatini as young Eswatini, is finding the ultimate form of our expression, which in the modern day is employment. Employment is then the intention that is fueled by the education system, so what we have been capacitated with, and then the experience of the individual. And the employment then becomes their expression and how they then access the decent living standards, which is they then get resources to actually live. The challenge then becomes in designing the experiences for the individual Liswati, who is a youth who came into an education system that sort of doesn't evolve as the individual evolves. And that is sort of one of the biggest challenges, is that we do not get enough capacity in order for us to express ourselves to the optimum capacities when we get to the workplace, which is, I wouldn't say the workplace, but in being employed, they would want to know how long you have been employed. So they know what kind of capacity you bring to this particular industry. So as young Eswatini, that is where the challenges lie with us. And I'll leave my colleague to actually add on to that.
No, absolutely. I think, thank you, Sakhile. I think you've hit it on the nail. It's, as a lecturer, I get to see sort of the road to employment, and I think, government is making some progress in sort of spreading the support out, especially now, you have students who can get scholarships for music, to study music. So
great.
there's some growth, but I think at some point, then they are left on their own, and they are sort of, they have a certificate in hand, but nowhere to go. Maybe they're not taught how to connect the two between school and having a source of income, multiple sources of income. So I think that's where the issue lies. It's the unemployable kids, and there's so many of them.
Wow. You raise a very valid point about the gap between how to now merge your certificate, what you've got in school, within the world of work. And I think, yeah, that's a very valid point. I think we've slowly been seeing the shift in the development agenda, where now there's a great focus that is being put into youth development, youth empowerment, by many development partners such as the UN, by governments, by private sector, where now everyone is seeing the urgency into saying, here are young people and we all need to work together, but still that is not enough. So I would like to just pass this question to Julie, and just to briefly tell us that, what are you guys doing as Fair and Square to contribute towards the issue of decent standard of living, specifically for the youth?
One of the things we're very passionate about at Fair and Square is economic justice. I mean, we live in a world where 1% of the people own 50% of the world's wealth, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So how does a young person make it in the world? We've trained about 500 youth since 2019.
Wow.
And it's all about building self-confidence, overcoming perceptions, because like all of us as humans, we have perceptions about ourselves, how to identify that and overcome it. Then it's about entrepreneurial development and basic business foundational modules. So giving people a solid foundation to build something, to believe in what they're going to do. Young people have so much to teach us.
Wow,
The person who's taught me the most in my life is my son. And we need to value our young people. And we also need to involve them in the decisions that affect them.
Yeah.
So all of our training has always been about, what is the gap that you have as a young adult? And then we mix up our programming to try and fill that need. So yeah, we're trying.
Yeah.
And I think it would be great if we all tried together
Yes.
and we aligned. So that's why I love the UN program at the moment. It's a really good one.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's one of the things that is being advocated for by the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program, by the UNDP, where we're saying everyone can play their role individually, but it makes a huge impact if we all come together and we collectively move this, more than just being everyone is putting the drop in the ocean. But if we all come together, then we're able to just make sure that we see the impact at a greater scale. Thank you for that, Julie. I'll move over to Siphesihle also to just briefly tell us from JA's perspective that what have you guys seen on the ground? What are you doing from your part to say that we are contributing towards the decent standard of living for the youth?
Thank you, Zenanile. At Junior Achievement, we have introduced entrepreneurship from schools and up to out-of-school youth, where we have seen young people taking up entrepreneurship and actually running with the different ideas that they're coming up with. What we have done as Junior Achievement is that from as young as high school, with the assistance of UNICEF, we have taught these young people to find the gap in their communities and actually make employment for themselves, not to rely on being employed. And that goes for out-of-school youth, where we have also taught them, we are also teaching them entrepreneurship, basically to say, some of them have been through tertiary, some of them couldn't make it to tertiary, some of them didn't pass well their high school, but giving them an opportunity to say, create employment for yourself, do entrepreneurship, do something with the skills that you have. We have created incubation centers with the assistance of UNICEF in Shiselweni, where we have trained over 100 young people just to say, your ideas they matter. We need them to fill up the gaps in our economy. They have come up with brilliant ideas that we wouldn't have thought of, but because they've been given these opportunities, they've been, they believe in themselves, you know, that the trainings actually bring out your brilliant side. You can go through high school, through tertiary, and actually don't realize that you're a brilliant person. But when you're given the opportunity to actually draw out from yourself what you like, you actually become the best of who you can be. So the youth of Eswatini have been given this opportunity, and we really appreciate. We've also recently opened another incubation center in Lutze, where we already have 60 young people who are going through the entrepreneurship training. And from those 60 young people, just like the 100 that we took through the training in Hlangano, we're expecting 60 new business ideas.
Yeah.
So they never do the same thing. So there'll always be a new idea. There'll always be something that they're doing there. Even if they do old ideas that have been there, but they're bringing in your technology, they're bringing in your fourth industrial revolution, something that we haven't been looking at as a country to say, how can we solve most of the problems that we have and still make money out of it? So they've been coming up with applications, new products for your skin, for whatever that is available there. So it's an intervention that is really helping a lot of Emaswati to say, I can still make something out of myself. I can still use my skills to employ myself. There's one lady in Nhlangano under the UNICEF program who's actually started making soap, like your cleaning materials, and she has diversified and has employed over 6 people. So it's like the small thing that you're doing, you're creating employment for other young people to actually say, we have to employ each other. If we don't create these businesses, then who is going to employ us? So it's an intervention that is really doing good for the young Liswati.
Wow, I like the fact that you bring the element of entrepreneurship and was speaking about employability. And I think I want to just also go a bit more into that one to say, with the work that you guys have been doing with JA, and I think also maybe Julie, you can speak into this one. What are we seeing on the ground in terms of, because I know that Sakhile and Velemseni spoke about the disconnect between what people learn from school and then how to bring that together in finding a job. But now we're saying, in terms of entrepreneurship, how does it look out there for young Emaswati? Is the culture for entrepreneurship there? And what more can be done to actually say, you can do both. You don't have to actually wait for a white-collar job for you to then push the entrepreneurship thing on the side as well. Yeah.
I think we are getting there. The culture hasn't been there. People my age in Eswatini never went through entrepreneurship trainings or were never exposed to entrepreneurship. But now that we have started with the young generation, we are creating a new culture. We are actually changing the narrative that says you have to go through your elementary school, go to tertiary, a lot of young people are actually discovering who they are whilst they're in school, and they know exactly what they want to do. So we are seeing a change in the culture, and we're seeing acceptance of entrepreneurship, the exposure. They are actually thinking differently than maybe 5 years ago. There's been a lot of take-up of entrepreneurship now, and I think even the government, even the schools, they are now actually seeing the difference. We went to one school where the head teacher was telling us that every student that has gone through the JA program actually progresses. You actually even see the change in them, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they believe in themselves, and that they've become something. So he was actually looking 5 years back that all the students that have been in this program have become something out of school, even if you don't make it to tertiary, but you get out of school knowing that you can do something. You have hope. You have courage. You actually are not afraid of anything. Yeah. So because we grew up doubting ourselves, and in whatever idea that you have, you don't necessarily get support from your parents. Everybody just shoots you down. But now it is slowly changing. Even the parents are encouraging their children. They are allowing them to take different skills. You don't have to finish high school and become a nurse, become a teacher. You can finish high school and become whatever you want to be. And in whatever you are doing, actually be entrepreneurial about it. Yeah. I have a son who's actually, he's in culinary school. He doesn't want to be employed. He says he wants to bring the African Michelin stars, because why are we not having our own entrepreneurial thinking and actually breaking the barrier? So we are seeing young people who have a different thought pattern now and are actually embracing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing in that issue of a different thought pattern and the taking risks, because that's what entrepreneurship is, right? Just being able to be confident and go for it, whether it works or not. You'll see it there. Julie?
Yeah, I've noticed that with SMEs and the startups that we've been mentoring and working with for many years, they have an income level that offers more and a more decent standard of living than a job. Going and getting a job, and that's what you have. You have a standard income. So they've been able to grow and develop in ways that you wouldn't have if you were just going to work and getting that same salary and a 10% increase every year. So having your own business, starting your own business, getting your own product out there is so important, because you can rise much faster to another level, and then you can become a job creator. You can employ other people. You can upskill other people within your community or within your friendship group, for example. Yeah. So that for me is really important. And that's why it's important to do the kind of training that we're doing to equip more young people and say, right, you can do it. And government are being very supportive of youth business and the SME development. So there is opportunities out there. The banks have also got a lot of grants available. So take that step, come up with that bright idea, do your market research, and get out there and start looking after yourself. The future's in your hands.
Thank you so much, Julie. Velemseni, Sakhile, do you want to add into that question before? Yeah.
Maybe what I'd add on to that is that as young people, we need to understand what entrepreneurship is. Yeah. Because just like employment, entrepreneurship is also a form of expression for the being. So in developing these entities of entrepreneurship, what are we seeking to achieve? Is it just financial stability, or do we want to live our communities better off? So the moment a young person is trying to start a business, that is the question that they should be asking themselves. And then the product that I am developing as a young person in business will then align to serving the community at a higher level rather than just a profit-based level, because we need to understand that growth is not necessarily good in the business industry, but thriving is what we would want to see from any business, because growth is us seeing 100 Goma chicken dust. But thriving is us seeing products actually develop and evolve into something that grows into a scheme that feeds the community, you know, that feeds the earth itself. So we as young people that are in business need to look a level higher than what we are looking at now, because it's not because young people that young people aren't involved in entrepreneurship. It's that we don't understand what entrepreneurship is. What is a business? What is an organization? The moment we understand that, then we'll be able to make better entities for us. Yeah.
That's so true. That part about what are you striving to, what are you striving to do with that business that you set up? And unfortunately, because we live in a country where we have high poverty, the first one would definitely be, I want a livelihood. So that's also the other thing, to find that people are now pushed into entrepreneurship, not because I want to, but because I need to have a job, you know what I mean? So I think the balance there in saying we're getting the knowledge about entrepreneurship, but as well, the living situation is also now forcing me to be in this space. I know that there's a lot that's happening in terms of youth empowerment, the youth empowerment space, and in basically speaking to the decent living standards and an access to improved livelihoods for vulnerable populations. But I just want to find out from you guys to say, what are the gaps that you're seeing and what more can be done by development partners like the UN, by government, and by other stakeholders to contribute towards youth empowerment and youth development in our country?
Well, in terms of the arts, I would say, because that also affects how we think, even if we don't grow up to be adults that are in that space. But I think early exposure to the arts in schools really opens up your mind in terms of confidence and exploring different ideas and all of that. So I think in that space, we could bring in arts early into primary. Yeah.
The same goes for entrepreneurship. I think what we have seen on the ground is that a lot of young people who are now entrepreneurs, you find that they don't have that financial support, and they have very brilliant ideas, but because they haven't had experience in whatever they are doing, they find themselves, they can't access loans, they can't access whatever they would need to start up their businesses or to upscale their businesses. So entrepreneurship, as we know, it's finding solution for your community, like Sakhile said, so that it is sustainable, so that it actually improves your living environments for everybody, even in your community. So we need to expose young people to entrepreneurship at an early stage, so that as they grow, they understand even the value of money. Because sometimes you are quick to want the money because you don't understand what you are actually doing. So exposing them to these trainings, exposing them to financial literacy and allowing them to understand, so that by the time they get to high school, the time they're out of school, they are confident that they can start a business, and they're actually even convicted that they can do it. Because sometimes you find that they do it as a last resort, because I haven't passed my high school, because I haven't done very well. But find very bright students who are actually saying, I am going into business, I don't want to be employed. Not because I can't get a job, but because what I'm doing, I'm passionate about, and I think I can change a lot of lives through my idea or through whatever I am doing. So early exposure, I think would help.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I would say that the promotion of entrepreneurship shouldn't overshadow the importance of employment.
Yeah.
Because we need young people who are skilled in research and developing entrepreneurship, but from an employment perspective, because those are the academics that will help us provide better conditions in order to thrive as a country or as a continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that for that, again, I'll go back to the Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program and its two pillars. They do focus on the graduates as well as the entrepreneurs. So in saying that young people are homogeneous, right? They are not the same. So we can't say we're pushing everyone into employment, we're pushing everyone into artisan or TVET education, we're pushing everyone into entrepreneurship skills, but we're saying have the option to choose based on what you're passionate about, but also have the support, in any decision that you make. Whether I'm going into employment, do I have the support that I need? Whether I'm going into entrepreneurship, do I have the support that I need? Whether I'm going into skills training, do I have the support that I need? etc. So yeah, you raise a very valid point there, Sakhile. Julie?
Yeah, I think with working with the youth we've been working with, raising that awareness and taking people out of their comfort zone and showing them new things and new ideas, that's always had a really positive effect on the young people that we train with. For example, taking them up to Ngwenya Glass to watch the glass blowing, or taking them down to see candles being made. It can ignite something in the mind. So we need to have more, I don't know, how can I put it, like awareness building experiences, going out of the country, going here, like to really like give them a more of a worldview, rather than being stuck in a rural area and only going to Manzini on a weekend. So finding ways to bring the world to our young people, I think would have a positive effect.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Julie. And I think that's what we can give bigs up to MTN Bushfire, because you get to bring all of this people into our spaces, and in a way we're kind of getting an experience of the international world, but we are saying for me to be able to dream further than what I can see, I need to see more than this. So that exposure is actually very necessary. And I think more support can actually be given there to say, let's bring the world to our young people wherever they are. And with the digital space now, that's very easy. I don't have to get on a plane and go over there. The world can just come to me where I am. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause for a little while to find out if we have any questions from our online audience, from the people listening. I'm not getting anything through. Okay, so we have no questions. So I think we have about 10 minutes left in our chat. And I just want to use those 10 minutes to find out from you guys. Maybe I'll say your parting shots, but don't rush through it. You have time to just tell us briefly your parting shot and your call to action. Now that we are here, we know the statistics, we know what's happening out there, and we are here trying to really speak to promoting the right to decent standard of living, to improved livelihoods for the vulnerable population. What's your call to action to our listeners out there, to anyone really who's listening, to say, what do you think should be done to get us further, to make sure that no one is left behind, as the UN likes to say?
So while my call to action, first I'd like to speak to the people that create the conditions, which is the government and its stakeholders, the United Nations. How are we setting up these conditions? And how are we setting up the conditions, and how are we netting in the youth as we are setting up the conditions? And then the intentions then of creating these conditions, can we project them into the future and see them as something that will be helpful to the youth? I'm saying this because for a very long time as human beings, we have had low standards. The standard was get good grades, and then you'll be okay. Yeah. And that is not the standard. So the government and its stakeholders needs to give us, as the individuals that are living under these conditions, a slightly higher level thing to aim at, because when we elevate our intentions, then we are able to be better productive as human beings. In doing this, we would then speak to the early childhood development program. What are we doing then as stakeholders because cognitively, a child from the first early stages, that is where they develop the will and the strength to actually attack whatever's coming in the future. Yeah. So what are we doing then there? Entrepreneurship, is JA doing anything at the JA early childhood development programs? With arts, are we doing anything to actually proliferate the cognitive development of young people from early childhood development? Yeah. So that is actually what I'm trying to throw. That is my call to action. Okay. Let us elevate our intentions as individuals, as communities, as the country, and as the global universe.
Wow, that's a very deep call to action. Yeah, good luck to our government on doing that. But
and you too.
But that's a very deep one, and I think it's a powerful one in saying that, how are we raising the standard? Because as policymakers, they are the ones that set the standards, right? So how are we raising the standard to make sure that we are taking the country to what we hope to see it to be? Julie, parting shot.
I'm actually looking in the camera now because I'm talking to all the parents out there. My call to action to parents is to start raising your children as the future adults that they are going to become. We can't treat them like babies and we can't protect them from life. We've got to give them information and skills from the time they are born and let them become really useful members of society. One of the things that youth are brilliant at, and they know far more than their elders, is technology. And I think it's really important that you use that skill. I mean, when my phone's broken, it's like, Mark, can you help me? Or my computer's not working. And he knows. And no one taught him, he knows. Yeah. So our young people, you have those skills. I mean, look at all the young people in this room running all this tech. One of the things we're going to be doing in the future is we're going to be working with DALA, who are a leading concept store here in the country. And it's all about marrying technology to artisanal businesses with design, putting all three of that together. And that's where our young people can really grow and achieve, because you know the tech, you know it better than we do. And you have the skills. Yeah.
Young people, you have the skills. Brilliant.
My call to action would be to be intentional with what we are doing. In terms of entrepreneurship, as Sakhile has said, we shouldn't just go through the motions. We shouldn't just go through what we have now, but we need to be intentional in terms of making sure that we expose our young people, as young as they are, to these solutions, to this entrepreneurship world out there. And actually, as we said, we are not saying entrepreneurship and education should be that and that, but in as much as it is joined, but be intentional, even in your education, when you have an idea of whatever you want to do as you grow up, be intentional about it. So my call to action would be that idea that you have, don't be afraid, step out and implement it, beef it up. As you're growing, you know, you would find that you had an idea when you were young, but as you're growing up, you're seeing other facets of your idea, you're seeing other opportunities. So it's important to actually own it and go out there and do it.
Brilliant.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
My call to action, I think I also want to speak to the parents, just like Julia, the guardians, the ones who are handling these young people and molding them. I think if they show any sense of alternative thinking or an artistic spark, you know, I would encourage, please, don't squash that. Yeah. Don't try and channel them into something that they are not naturally drawn to, you know, unless it's for their own good, obviously. But it's important to let them play and learn and try new things, because that's how you get innovation and growth and change. And also to the churches, you know, because I think a sense of community is very important. That's where we learn collaboration and teamwork and all of those skills. Merging businesses, you know what I mean? So churches as well, I would encourage, let them be unique. Let's not try and mold them into one specific kind of child or mzalwane, you know. Let them be, let them grow, let them play.
But I know with churches, a lot of talent is discovered in churches. So I think we can give them props for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we wrap up, we have a couple of comments from our Twitter family. Zenanile, she's saying, thank you for the informative session. It's important to also incorporate a basic standard of housing for all in Eswatini. Resources may be limited, but we can come together to ensure that all have standard housing. And that's a very important one, because when we speak about a right to decent living standards, we speak about having access to clothing, to housing, having access to your basic human rights. So I think that brings us to the end of our dialogue session this afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us and for interacting on our social media platforms. Please do join in for our next live dialogue in partnership with MTN Bushfire Live Dialogue, in partnership with the United Nations Eswatini, which will be happening on Monday at 10 a.m. We'll be talking about the right to health or access to health care. And then at 12:30 p.m., we're speaking about the right to freedom of expression. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. It's been a wonderful time hanging out with you this afternoon. And yeah, as we go. Bring your fire for the human rights. Bring your fire for decent living standards. Thank you so much.
Come see us at the Bring Your Fire Zone.
Yes, please do come
Bring
see
your
us.
fire.
We'll be here the Bushfire weekend at the Bring Your Fire Zone. So please come to check us out, where we will be also promoting a bit more of our human rights, as we have been doing throughout the week with the dialogue. So yeah, more will be happening there. A lot of prizes to be won, a lot of giveaways.
Performances.
So please do check us out. Yes, performances from our very own Velemseni over here. Thank you.